Hey, what it do, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We're just having a great day. So we are going full force into the F550 Cummins teardown. We're going to be fixing all the leaks on this. For anybody that is not familiar, this thing leaks a bunch from the front, it leaks a bunch from the side, it leaks a bunch from that side, leaks a bunch from the rear. So basically we got to take the entire thing apart, which means everything has to come off. Transmission has to get separated, all the turbos have to come off, the entire front part of the engine has to be disassembled. We're probably taking the P pump off. Everything is coming off of this engine. So I'm probably going to need a couple more boxes to be able to get everything apart. So everything we've done up until this point, taking the cab off, getting the chassis over here, having to mess with all that, has just been in preparation to actually start working on this. So I am super excited to get into this. It's going to be an awesome video. But before we get too far into this video, I want to give a huge shout out to a couple guys. So this is where something like a teleprompter would come in handy, but since I don't have one, we're just going to use the back of my hand. So I just want to give a huge thank you to Justin, Ryan, Mike, Joe, and Jose. Now you guys may be wondering why I'm telling them thank you. So throughout the past 2 years, these guys have all been donating a little bit here and there to my Patreon account, and it really helps out with making these videos. As of right now, I pretty much just do this as a hobby. I like sharing these things with you guys, and it does cost me a little bit of money, and with their donations, it does actually help make these videos. So yeah, basically I just wanted to tell you guys that you are awesome, and with that, we're gonna go ahead and jump into this project. We're gonna get this thing torn apart. No idea what else is gonna make its way into today's video. Something always seems to sneak its way in there, but I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's go ahead and jump on into it, and let's roll. This is a great unit made by fluid damper. This engine's built for some pretty serious power, but we think that it's lacking fuel going to the injection pump. All right, here we go. Air dog. This is the DF165. Perfect. Not going. We're looking around 1,400 pounds. We'll say 1,500 just to be safe. That gives us a 500-pound buffer. We'll say 1,500 just to be safe. That gives us a 500-pound buffer. So let's go ahead and get this thing lifted up. Alright, so we got the engine resting on the jack stand right now. We still have a little bit of pressure right here. Alright, so to kick this off, we're going to start with the easy side. We're going to go ahead and take everything off the front, which means the fans coming off, the water pulleys coming off, tensioners, alternators. That's the water pump right there, AC compressor. Pretty much everything's coming off. So I'm gonna set the camera up on a time lapse because this is gonna go pretty quick. And then in my opinion, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys after all this is taken apart, what makes the Cummins 12 valve so awesome and such a reliable engine. It's all behind this timing gear cover right here. So once this plate that you see back here comes off, you guys are gonna see why this engine is so awesome. So for anybody that may not be familiar, on this whole assembly right here, in my opinion, this is the hardest bolt to get out because they sandwiched it right behind the main fan pulley. And to get this to slide out, to be able to get anything on there, you have to take 6 of these little bolts off, which are also a pain to get off. But as I'm looking at this, we are missing a bolt right there. So we're gonna have to pick up another one of those because we can't have that. But I'm gonna go ahead and get all these little bolts out so we can slide this pulley forward just a little bit so that we can get the round edge of this on here, because this right here is just slipping and sliding. All right, so now that you can see this is loose, we're actually able to get something on there so that we don't round it out even more. And this is the last bolt that holds this entire fan assembly on. So once we get that off, this will be off, and I'm thinking we're just gonna place everything very nicely right there. Easy does it, here it comes. All right, coming off nicely. All right, we'll go ahead and set that down gently right there. And we got all the little fan bolts, we'll go ahead and stick those in the box. So one thing that's worth noticing before we jump into this any farther, he put an extremely nice harmonic balancer on here. This is a great unit. It's made by Fluid Damper. It's made in the USA. These things are worth their weight in gold. Such a better unit than the stock 12 valve harmonic balancers that they used to come with. You can see that he's got the tachometer right here. Sweet, sweet setup. Highly recommend that. So there's one thing that I'm really curious to see if he fixed while he was doing this build, and I'm wondering if he put the tab over the killer dowel pins. So basically what the killer dowel pin is there's a pin that protrudes out from this block that basically this whole timing housing right here slides onto it, and with time it'll weasel its way out and it'll fall onto one of the gears. Then I think what it would do is blow out the aluminum housing right here. I think the dowel pin hangs out somewhere right around here, might be over here. I don't remember where it is, but I'm real curious to see if it got fixed when this was being built. So let me go ahead and get all this taken apart. Should be pretty quick, and then once we get that taken apart, we'll go ahead and start taking all the turbo stuff off. So real quick before we go ahead and take this cover off, you guys can see that odds are this front seal right here is where the bulk of the oil leak is coming from. You guys can see that this is just covered in oil right here. So when the truck originally came over here, our main goal is to make this truck not leak anymore. And odds are it is this seal right here, but since we're this far into it, we're gonna go ahead and take it completely apart. We're gonna replace every gasket that has to do with this front piece right here, because there's another piece that goes between the block and the housing right here. There's a gasket between the housing and this cover right here. And obviously there's this front seal right here. And then this housing right here actually mates to the oil pan gasket. And then the oil pan gasket actually splits a gap. There's like a 3-point connection right here that has to be just perfect, or that's another common spot for an oil leak. So first gen Cummins 12 valves are just notorious for being leaky monsters. And I would say that the bulk of that comes from all of this area right here. Then the rest of it, it does tend to get leaky eventually, but I would say that the beginning of all of the oil leak problems usually stems from this area right here. All right guys, Bad Brad knows what he's doing. I was pretty close with the dowel pin. You guys can see this little hex head right here in this little bracket. Basically, the only reason this exists is to hold that dowel pin in right there. So what happens is this will eventually work itself out. It'll land on top of this gear. And if I'm correct, this gear spins counterclockwise. So it'll land right here. It'll get shoved into right here. And it does not fit between that gap. And it just blows this housing apart. And for anybody that's not familiar, this is not a cheap housing to buy. Pretty pricey. So super cheap fix to avoid a very expensive problem. All right, well, duty calls and I actually got to head into work, but I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys something. And this is almost like worst case scenario. This is what I feared pretty bad. So this right here is the crankshaft, and I don't know how well this is gonna show up on camera, but this is a very high mileage engine, and you guys can see all these grooves worn into it. Not great. So they do sell repair sleeves that go over this, but as this sits right now, if we were to throw another seal on there, it'd only be a matter of time before it just starts spitting oil everywhere again. So this is not great, and that kind of actually bums me out. But here is the design at why I think the Cummins is super awesome, is because there is so much stuff that runs off of this gear drive right here. This right here is your oil pump. This right here connects to the world famous P pump. This is a P7100 piston style injection pump, which is just super awesome, super reliable. This right here connects to the camshaft inside the engine. And this right here goes to the power steering pump, also the brake pump. So this right here is one of the main reasons why I think the Cummins 12 valve is such an awesome engine, aside from the fact that we got made in USA, made in USA, made in USA. A lot of US parts right here. And I'm sure a lot of you know this, but a lot of engines actually have chain-driven components. You'll have a chain that connects to the crankshaft somewhere, and then it'll come up to the cams or something like that. Well, chains stretch with time. With gears, there's almost zero that can happen other than like a killer dowel pin, or if for some reason the engine gets starved of oil, or the amount of failure that can come from this is very minimal. So superb design, I love it. We're gonna go ahead and leave this as is for the time being, because eventually I'm gonna stick my barring tool in there and we're gonna get everything to top dead center before we actually start to take this apart. So like I said, I gotta get going to work. So as soon as I get back, we'll dive into this side and start taking this apart. So definitely excited to be back in the shop after 3 days of madness. We finally get to jump back into the Fummins where we left off. This was in rough shape. We talked about this a little bit. This is gonna have a real hard time holding a seal. The parts have been ordered. We got the new crankshaft seal kit that comes out the front that actually has the new sleeve that goes over it. So that's not here yet, but that will be remedied. So what we're gonna be doing today, we're gonna jump back onto the engine, take the turbos apart. All right, well, first up on the list, you guys can see that we are gonna have to rectify a couple things when we put all this back together. We got a little bit of soot action right there. You guys can see as we shake this around, it's not really supposed to move like that. So we're definitely gonna be clamping these down a little bit better. But let's go ahead and take off this heat shield. We'll go ahead and throw that in that box. I think we're gonna start with this clamp right here, then we'll move to that clamp, that clamp. We're basically just gonna start chasing it up this way. So one thing that may be worth taking note is that when this was put back together, now keep in mind, this is a completely custom build it as you go scenario. So I experienced the exact same thing on my K30 with my whole turbo setup that was in there. And I also had the AC system in my K30, which actually worked. But because of that, this whole area, when everything's put back together, is super tight. There's not a lot of real estate. So you kind of have to work with what you have. And so as you guys can tell, this is not your average turbo setup. This is a compound turbo system, which I can dive into that more on in a later video if you guys don't know what that is. But basically you have big turbo, small turbo, makes a lot of boost, 12 valves, love them. But because of that, you have a much larger exhaust outlet right here. I mean, big. And we had our little elbow that came down and it was rubbing on the transmission right here. So we're gonna try and avoid this when we put it back together. We may have to make some adjustments to this. This is a little bit on the loose side. It's kind of rocking back and forth, which is not supposed to happen. So we're gonna try and avoid that when we put it back together, but that's probably a pretty big one that we wanna resolve. So I'm gonna keep taking this apart. We got some oil lines to disconnect. Yeah, let me keep going. All right, so we got the turbos all the way off. We got these soaking in Croil right now. Hopefully they come out. Hopefully they're not gonna meet the same fate as this guy right here. You guys can see that it's missing. Okay. Brad just showed up. He brought some stuff over that we're gonna be throwing on this thing. All right. And did you bring a pump?
Yeah, pumps in the car.
Okay. So this engine's built for some pretty serious power, but we think that it's lacking fuel going to the injection pump. So we're going to be upgrading the stock Ford system, wherever it is right there, which, how many gallons is that one?
This pump makes about 6 PSI or so to the 6.4 common rail pump, which is way too low for a P pump. He's about 52 PSI.
All right. And what'd you pick up?
What's that?
What'd you pick up?
Oh, an Air Dog.
Air Dog, all right. Is it the 150?
165.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So anyways, we're gonna be throwing that on here. All right, so here we go. The Air Dog. This is the DF 165.
Sir.
Perfect. Not going in a truck like this, even though it's made for it. Okay.
This one has mounting hardware, mounting plates, and a good old pump.
So probably not going to make its way on in this video, but we may start doing some of the initial prep work to get this thing actually mounted up. My main focus on this one is to get the engine completely stripped down, figure out exactly what we're gonna need to get it rebuilt back to better than factory specs. So we'll go ahead and put all this stuff back in so we don't lose it. This come with it too? All right, so they've been soaking in core oil for a little bit. As you guys can tell, we got a couple different nuts and bolts here. We're gonna start with the Allens, and then I'm gonna try and end on this one because this is the one that I think I'm most nervous about. The rest of them, I think will probably be okay. But this is gonna require my full attention. So, need both hands. Here we go. That one came loose nicely. So those are gonna be a little bit trickier. They're not gonna be in there. Okay. I'll have to find those. So I probably should have shown this in a little bit greater detail to begin with, but this stud right here had worked itself all the way in there and was like almost chafing against this fuel return line. But good news is that it's just coming out. So, happy day. All right. Oh, this guy. Oh, easy.
See, studs. That's why we get them.
All right, well, since everything's coming apart, we got to go ahead and drain the oil out of the oil pan. We kind of been putting this off for just a little bit. Not that it really mattered, but let's go ahead and crawl under there and see what we need to take it off. I do like working on lifted trucks.
Yeah.
Okay. Easy day.
Don't affiliate you.
So, all right, well, I'm tapping on this oil pan, guys, and that's sounding pretty empty. We're not gonna judge, though. You know, it's okay.
It's got a lot of leaks.
Did you weld this?
Oh yeah.
Bolt on down there with a plug?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
This is welder attached to my arm here.
This thing is on there pretty good.
That was the way we mitigated leaks.
Oh my gosh.
You're gonna have to slap it.
I'm gonna have to need the impact to take this thing off.
No, maybe.
Dude, it is. Okay.
Yeah, one good punch.
There we go. We're trying not to make things any worse than they are. Oh, there's a little bit of oil coming out. You're lucky. Oh, so back to my Titan story.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we got the transfer case off, and we're trying to debate if we try and manhandle this thing, or if I go get the engine hoist in here. I'm guessing it weighs about 240. What's your guess, or do you know already?
I was saying 180, but I know now.
180, how much is it?
The book literally says 240 pounds.
Oh, man. Pretty close. Oh, that was spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, this old
Can't be
guy
any closer.
said it feels like 500.
So, 240. I'm kind of thinking I pick up a new cylinder for the engine hoist.
Yeah, it's not killer bags.
Just put a strap around it and pick it out like that.
Yeah, we can D-line it and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't feel like struggling that hard today. If I was 10 years younger, I'd probably go for it, but I'm not. So, yeah.
Easy enough.
We'll just pick up a new cylinder for that engine hoist because I'm not doing that today. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start undoing the oil pan. There's like 1,000 10mm bolts that hold this thing on. And so, not very interesting. I'm just gonna get it done. All right, I think we reached our stopping point today because we're lacking some tools. My engine hoist has a bad cylinder on it, so I need to get a new one. And we're gonna have to simultaneously lift the back end of the engine up because there's some weird tapers down here. I'm not sure how well this will show up on camera, but basically the transmission needs to slide back, what would you say, like 4 or 5 inches?
Yeah.
At least. And with that, we have to lift the back end of the transmission up. So everything kind of has to tilt this way in order to clear everything. And we don't have the manpower to do that, so we're gonna need some hydraulics, and I don't have that with me today. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up for today. I might be able to run into town tomorrow and pick up what we need, but until then, see you guys later. All right, well, back at it bright and early today, and it's also Labor Day, so what better way to spend it than laboring on the Flummins? I'm hoping today's the day where we get the engine out. We came to that standstill yesterday because we didn't have anything to lift any of this stuff that was not being occupied. The gantry crane is temporarily unavailable, but I need to run into town to pick up the rest of the stuff to actually make it usable. So we're gonna run into Harbor Freight Home Depot. We're gonna be going to Tractor Supply, picking up different odds and ends today. And then once we get back, we should have enough stuff to be able to lift this thing successfully, because this transmission has an aluminum housing, and you gotta be very careful with aluminum housing because they do not like being dropped. They don't like being banged against things. They have a tendency to crack. So we're gonna be as gentle as we can, lifting all of this out. And then once we have everything out, I might roll this back. I don't know yet, but we'll be back in just a little bit. All right, we are rolling up to the Harbor Freight down here in Lemon Grove. Such a classy establishment. Check this out. Ooh. All right, so I think we've got everything we need. This is their rolling gantry crane. It's actually pretty slick. It's adjustable. I think that goes up, but we're not gonna need one of those. We do need, however, another 8-ton jack. We got our 3-ton chain hoist and the push beam trolley down there. All right, well, it ended up not getting the chain hoist because we got the 2 electric ones. So we did get the push beam trolley, and we got a new jack for the engine stand or engine hoist. This one's actually pneumatic, so that should be pretty cool. But we got some other running around to do, so these are going in the cab. All right, just pulled back into the ranch. We had to make a little stop by Tractor Supply as well, get some food for the cattle. So time is a little bit of the essence today. We're gonna attempt to do this with just the engine hoist. If it gets too tricky and it's looking like it's not gonna happen, I will bring the gantry crane up here. We'll go ahead and put the push beam trolley on there. And then I am gonna have to reconfigure one of those because those can run either off of 440 3-phase or 240 3-phase. So I would have to switch it around because right now it's currently wired up for 440. And I don't want to have to do that. So we're going to attempt to do this, try and get this thing cranked out. Let's go ahead and get this thing opened up. So I've got the old ugly orange ones that they used to make. It's that beauty right over there. I was this close to buying the nice pretty red and black ones that they have now that would actually match the cylinder. But you know what? We're going bang for buck on this one. So let me go ahead and set this back down, and we'll get that one dragged over. All right, so taking this thing off is pretty easy. Just got to bolt up top, bolt down bottom, and then this one just goes back in its place. All right, we are looking pretty. We got the ram installed. Now this is a 2-ton engine hoist, which I guarantee you that does not weigh 4,000 pounds. So we're gonna go ahead and slide it out to the 1-ton portion, which should be more than enough. The engine, I don't remember exactly how much there. Probably in the ballpark of 1,100 somewhere. Plus we got the 240 on the transmission. We're looking around 1,400 pounds. We'll say 1,500 just to be safe. That gives us a 500-pound buffer. So let's go ahead and get this thing lifted up. Oh, that is so much faster. You guys, I love this thing. Look at that. Woo! Probably be okay not tightening it up, but we'll snug it up just a little anyways. All right, so here's where it's gonna start to get a little bit technical. Not too crazy yet, but we gotta start to be careful. So on the back of the transmission right here, we have a little mounting bracket right here. And on the bottom side of this, there's 2 nuts that I've already taken off. And then as you come up here, the transmission actually bolts to this mounting bracket as well. I know on a lot of vehicles they have like some sort of isolation pad. Sometimes there's some sort of rubber in there. They allow for a little bit of twisting because a lot of these diesels just have a lot of torque and there's a lot of movement, and that just helps reduce fatigue and stuff like that. So anyhow, there's 2 bolts right here that we gotta disconnect next. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and lift the back end of this transmission up. See how high it comes up gently? And then once we figure out like a good elevation, I'll go ahead and stick a jack stand underneath the back of the engine, at which point we will saddle this thing and we will bring it out very gently with the engine hoist. So that's my game plan more or less. So let me go ahead and get these bolts out down here. All right, well I think I've got the transmission all rigged up how I want it. We're gonna go ahead and start lifting very slowly. We're gonna see how the engine behaves. And then if it does what I want, we'll go ahead and pull out this bracket, and then we'll go ahead and set it up. You guys can see I got the jack stand right there. So we're pretty close to being able to pull this thing out. It should just slide out if everything goes correctly. We want to do it so there's no pressure anywhere, so it's just nice and smooth. So let me go ahead and get this thing lifted up, then we'll see how it behaves. All right, so we got a little bit of pressure on there already. We're gonna go ahead and keep going just a little bit. Oh, there we go. Starting to rock nicely. I'm liking it. Okay, I think we can go ahead and pull this out. Possibly. Hope I don't smash my fingers in the process. Okay, there's the trans mount. There's those rubber isolators that I was telling you guys about. We'll go ahead and set this off to the back. Let's see if we are clear. I think we got enough room to slide it back about, I'd say probably 6 inches before we start rubbing on this cross member right here. So I think we're good. So I'm gonna go ahead and set the jack stand up. We'll put a couple rags on it so we don't damage the oil pan any more than it is already. And then I can go ahead and pull out the rest of the bolts, and I think that transmission is just gonna come out nice and smooth. All right, so we got the engine resting on the jack stand right now. We still have a little bit of pressure right here. There's pressure down there, so everything's, in theory, kind of staying where it's supposed to be. So we're gonna go ahead and take off the rest of these bolts. Not all the way though, because I kind of want to see how it behaves. We're gonna go just a little bit. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put this one back in a smidge. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want things to get too wild. I basically want to see if I can separate this like 1/8 of an inch before things start twisting too much. And if it's looking pretty uniform, then we'll go ahead and take them all the way out, at which point we can slide the whole transmission out. All right, things are looking pretty good so far. You guys can see we got a little gap right there. That's exactly what we're looking for. We're gonna keep going just little by little. We're gonna work this transmission out. I'm hoping there's more weight back here than there is up here, because there wasn't really any good pick points to wrap the strap around right there. Yeah, slip the hoist back a little bit. There we go. She's free.
She's beautiful.
So I think I've said this once already, but this is not your typical Cummins 12-valve setup. You guys can see we have this huge billet adapter plate back here. It's just beautiful, but we have a much larger clutch than what typically came behind these 12 valves. So one of the things that I'm curious about right here, you guys can see we have all the slots right here. I have a clutch key that is used to line these things up, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab that and see if it fits, because when we go to put all this back together, everything has to be just right. We don't wanna mess anything up. So I gotta remember where I stashed those things. It's been like 5 or 6 years since I've been into one of these Cummins 12 valves, so I think it's this drawer right here. Let's see, oh, here's a couple of them. We got this one, there's my barring tool. Looking a little bit on the larger side, so we can probably rule this one out. For sure, too small. That one fits pretty good. We'll set that one right there. But it may have a larger end piece. That one fits as well. But we're gonna go ahead and start to take apart the rest of this stuff. You guys can see we got some hex head bolts right here. We're gonna go ahead and take all these out, and then this should just drop off. And then this big old monster, this thing's gotta come off. And I think this has to come off too. We're basically just gonna disassemble everything. And I'm gonna go ahead and put it up on a time lapse. And it shouldn't take too long, but let's go ahead and get this thing cranked out. So for those of you who are not familiar with what I just took apart, Brad did put some really cool parts on this truck. This is a twin disc clutch setup. You guys can see we have 2 different sets of clutch pads right here. Then you basically have this big disc in between them. This thing is good for an insane amount of power. So we're gonna go ahead and keep taking this apart. We basically got 8 super heavy duty bolts right here. Basically this plate right here connects to the crankshaft. So as the engine spins, this bad boy's spinning right here. Then once I think this is off, I think this is gonna come off too. I've never dealt with a billet adapter plate, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on with that. But as soon as we get this off, we'll go ahead and see what's going on behind that thing. All right, well, I'm gonna take a little bit of a break because a little bit on toasty side today, and my camera needs to take a break too. It's like melting in my hands. So we're gonna set in the fridge for a little bit, but as soon as we get back, we'll go ahead and finish taking off this plate right here, Man, that is a beautiful piece of metal. So this is the crankshaft right here. This is where all the power comes out. This is what connects to all the pistons in there and spins really fast. So let me go ahead and get the camera cooled off and then we'll get back at it again. All right, well, camera's done cooling down just a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and take out the rest of these 8 bolts so we can go ahead and get this billet cover off. I'm guessing 17 on these. I was off. Let's see, 16? It's close. All right, well there it is. The back of the engine is completely stripped down. Next up, we need to lift the engine so I can go ahead and finish taking off the oil pan. But like I said, I can't do that until Brad gets here and the engine hoist becomes available again. So until then, I'm gonna go ahead and put all these bolts in their baggies and label them so we can continue to keep track of everything. So we almost have everything completely disconnected from the engine. We're not gonna be taking this off, I don't think. There's really not any reason to. We're not doing anything over here. It may come off just in case we actually paint this thing or make it pretty, but for now we're just gonna go ahead and leave those on there because there's no real reason to take them off. The only thing that's left on here is the ground cable and the fact that it's actually bolted to the frame still. But as far as actual random stuff, I think that's it. Oh, I lied, I'm sorry. We got our fuel lines too. We need to disconnect these. And these you wanna take real good care of when you take them off to try and keep them clean. No contaminants. We don't want any gunk getting in there. Dirt and injection pumps equals bad. So we'll get those disconnected, wrapped up, cleaned up, stowed away so we don't mess anything else up in there. I've been kind of nervous to look at the rear main seal here because with how bad the front one was, I kind of think the rear one's not too far away. And this is the one that's really hard to get to. It's a lot of work to get to this point. And so this is the one that you want to make sure 100% that you fix right. So since he's not here, we're going to go ahead and take off this little housing right here. And to do that, I think you just have 6 bolts that go into the block. Yeah, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then from the bottom side, we got a couple ones from the oil pan that come up into this as well that go ahead and finish the seal between the gasket and the block. So we're going to go ahead and take this apart. To me, it doesn't look like it's leaking super bad. Maybe a little, well, that's pretty oily right there. So I don't know, there's only one way to find out, and let's go ahead and take it apart. It's just a bunch of little 8mm bolts. They're not really torqued down that hard. It's not really structural. This little piece right here just kind of helps seal the engine up so you can keep the oil inside of it. All right, it's time for the moment of truth. Let's go ahead and take off this little cover. Maybe. It's on there pretty good. I don't think I missed any bolts. Yeah, we may need to pry it just a little bit. Let me go ahead and get a little baby screwdriver. All right, well, Brad just showed up. You guys may be able to hear him in the background. And it's pretty much just in time to go ahead and see what's behind the rear main seal. He's gonna get backed up right here so we can go ahead and load up the transmission in the back of this truck. Not sure why he's coming over here. I don't know. Oh, getting the right angle. Not yet, it's not, but it will be. All right, moment of truth right now. We've got everything taken apart. We just got this little spacer ring off. Do you want to do the honors?
What? Pulling that cover?
Yeah, seeing how nice it is. Yeah. There, it's free. It's
all right. Oh, it's better than the front.
It's not awful.
It's not the worst I've ever seen.
Okay. It's got a little bit of a groove in there.
I think we can reposition that one. And
yeah, you got plenty of space to work with.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the housing? Where did that go?
Right.
Yeah, I think we can probably make that one work.
Any chunks of metal in there? No.
Yeah, the oil looks pretty good when it came out, so I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah.
But I think that's as far as I'm getting today.
Oh, yeah.
Good progress.
Yeah, I like this. That's the indicator there.
Yes, she got roasted. All right, we got Brad taking off. He's gonna get gone. That transmission's actually got a problem in second gear, so he's gonna take it to the transmission shop for the guy that rebuilt it for him. And then as far as tearing the plumbings apart, I think we're pretty good. This right here is a lot better than we thought it was gonna be. It's got a little bit of a groove cut into it, but with these, you guys can adjust the rear seal at different spots on this, and you guys can see how smooth it is back. So I think we're gonna be able to salvage this. Originally, when we were looking up front, we thought that if the rear one looks like that, we may be just scrapping the entire engine. He's got a long block back at his house that is in much better shape than this one, so we were kind of hesitant, but after looking at the rear, I think we're okay. Like I said, we got the repair sleeve for this one coming. So in the next video, I'll finish getting the rest of this all taken apart. We'll get this pulled apart. I'll explain a little bit about top dead center. The injection pump actually has a timing advance on it. We'll get into that a little bit. So pretty pumped with the progress that we made today. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and put the screws this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you do me a huge solid like, subscribe, share this with your amigos, hit that notification button down below so you guys can continue to see all the work that we got going on the Fummins as we continue to tear this thing down and rebuild it. Super excited to keep working on this project, and I will see you guys next time. Later.